I am an honest guy who made an honest mistake. I was there. I survived. His breath was right against my neck. At 15, I too thought I could take on the world. I thought, this is it. This is actually the end. I'm not going to hurt you. I survived. I'm going to tell you about that. I am an honest guy who made an honest mistake. I was there. I survived. His breath was right against my neck. At 15, I too thought I could take on the world. I thought, this is it. This is actually the end. I'm not going to hurt you. I survived. I'm going to tell you about that. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories podcast. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. Alright, so the first story that I told in the Survivor series was a liar who fooled the world. The next story is not a lie, and oh God, I wish it was. I wish I could say this was a lie, but it's not. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. It's 1978 and it's Berkeley, California. Now, it's a bright, sunny Saturday afternoon. Oh, must have looked amazing. All that 1970s-ness. Men, big moustaches, wearing, I don't know, vests and smoking fags and I've just got that image in my head of it all looking like really like late 70s kind of cool. Now, there's someone who's not having a very bright Saturday afternoon, and that is a 15-year-old girl called Mary. Now, Mary is a dancer, and she's having a really, really tough time in her life because her parents are divorcing. And she's finding that the family home is a really, really horrible, horrible place to be. I mean, there is nothing worse than being around people who are arguing. It's so annoying. You just want to be like, shut up. Shut the fuck up. People arguing. Stop fighting. It's just annoying, isn't it? Anyway, Mary has a dream. And that dream is to dance in Las Vegas. No. Not like sexy dancing, not like round a pole, like din 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 din, where she'd have to like change her name to like, I don't know, Destiny or something. Not that. Not kind of like I'm dancing in a tiny song. Not that kind of thing, but like proper dance. Proper. She wants to go to one of the like clubs where they're like legendary for their dance Vegas shows. So within these shows, right, they always have like a sort of hierarchy. You know, you get it within dance companies, you get it within all these things. It's like they do in ballet companies. It's almost like a prima ballerina in a dance company. But they have these in these Vegas companies, and it's when you are the lead dancer, and that is what Mary wants. She wants to be the lead dancer in one of these Vegas shows, and she's only 15 years old, but eyes on the prize, that's what she wants. Okay? She thinks that if she can go and she can achieve this, then she can be the best. She can then take that and she can run with it and be the best dancer in the world. Let the attack begin. At this point, I'm just going to mention two quick things, and they are this. One's about me, one's about an incredible listener to this podcast. The first is I much like Mary, I understand the world of dance when you were 15 because I was once crowned. I was once crowned the East Renfrewshire champion of dance when I was like 15 years old. Ridiculous. So ridiculous. My moves were so good. I was there with my tap shoes. And I was like changing into my like jazz outfit. Oh, here I go and I'm doing some jazz. Yeah, doing all my dancing. Yeah. Could have been the world's best dancer, but sadly things got in the way and I could not do that in my life. Anyway, I want to tell you just very quickly, and this is a massive listener shout out, but this is, I want you to go and look up Anna the Hooligan. So Anna is a dedicated listener to the podcast, and she contacted me through Instagram just to say, I really love the podcast, Barry. I really love what you're doing. Keep telling stories. And I looked at her profile and I was like, oh my God, she's actually incredible. She's a proper artist. She does the most incredible things with a hula hoop. She performs all across Europe with her act, and it is wonderful. I'm talking like hula hoops on fire. I'm talking like she goes into massive clubs and does the most amazing shows. I'm going to actually post her video on the Facebook group so that you can see it. Anna the Hooligan. She's absolutely incredible and also just the loveliest of people. So I'm going to post that up there and you can find her. You can find her on Instagram and on Twitter and all that things. But there's images, there's videos. Just go and look at her because she's absolutely incredible. Okay, back to Mary. Mary's having a terrible time at home and she's planning to run away. Now she wants to get from where she is to LA, but she's 15 and she can't drive. But what she can do is hitchhike. Now, us true crimists, we know 3 things that are going to immediately tell you that something dangerous is going to happen are the 3 statements: 1978, a 15-year-old girl, and hitchhiking. Doesn't really sound like there's going to be a Disney ending to this. And so off she goes. She sets off for Los Angeles. She takes her little backpack and off she goes to the side of the road where she waits and she hopes that someone will pick her up and take her away. Let's leave Mary waiting at the side of the road for a few minutes and we will introduce someone else. Lawrence Singleton. Maybe one of the creepiest looking men in the world. Seriously. Like sick down yourself levels of creepy. Singleton was an ex-Marine who had spent years at sea. He was unmarried, he was a bit of an outsider. Now, people who knew him said he had a temper. He drank a lot of alcohol and he could be very, very vicious. So he is 51 years old and he was driving alone across the highway when he arrives at what's called Hitchhiker's Corner, a well-known spot, a really well-known spot for hitchhikers to go to get a ride to wherever they are going. And it's on that sunny day that the 51-year-old Singleton is driving down the road and Mary is looking for a lift. Now Mary isn't alone. What's happened is, as she's standing at Hitchhiker's Corner, two other females have approached her and they're all sort of waiting together. So along the road comes Singleton in his truck and he pulls up and he says, well, I'm on my way to Reno. Every time I hear or a story mentions Reno, all I can think about is Sister Act. All I can think about is Whoopi Goldberg singing. Anyway, he says, I've only got room for one passenger. And that's immediately creepy. It's also lies. It's also a lie because his van was empty. There was nothing in his van except for a toolbox. So the two girls, right, that Mary has met, they were immediately creeped out by Singleton. They just got a weird vibe from him. And they said, I'm not into travelling with him at all. Now, Mary also got the same vibe. She thought he was a little creepy, but she was so desperate, so desperate to get away that she climbs into the truck with the 51-year-old Singleton. He explains he's going to Reno and that he will drop her off wherever she needs to go. A few minutes into the journey, Mary lights up a cigarette and it starts to make her cough. Singleton, while driving the truck, he reaches over and he puts his hand on her chest, down her top. And when she's like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? He says, oh, I was checking your chest to see if it was alright. I'm just checking to see that you're not unwell. Aye, right. Aye, fucking right. Mary rejects the advance. She pushes his hand away. And the journey continues. At this point, Mary's feeling very uncomfortable, but she's also feeling slightly trapped. Singleton is drinking lots of beer on the journey. The good old 1970s when you could just be driving around the road drinking some beer. And he gives Mary a beer. She takes it. It makes her a bit drowsy and she falls asleep for a time. And when she wakes up from her sleep, she realises that the truck is going in a different direction. It's not going towards LA. It's not going towards where she wanted to be getting off. And this is where Mary is great. She wakes up, she realises they're going in a different direction. And the first thing that she does is she looks around the truck that she's in for anything that might look like something she could use at this moment. And she feels under the seat and she finds a sharp stick. A very, very sharp stick. She pulls the sharp stick out. And the 15-year-old Mary, love this. She picks it up. She places it in Singleton's face as he's driving, and she asks, "Where the hell are we going?" Now he apologises and he says, "I've lost concentration and I've taken us in the wrong direction." He says, "I'm just an honest man who made an honest mistake. I'm not going to hurt you." Mary doesn't really buy this. And as the journey continues, she starts to feel incredibly uneasy. She just wants out of the truck. She wants away from this man who's still continuing to drink as he drives. So now she's thinking, I really need to find a way that I'm going to get out of this. And what she has in her head is she's thinking, well, I'm 15. He's not 15. She doesn't know what age he is, but she's thinking, I'm 15, I'm young, I'm fit, I'm a dancer. When we stop, I'm going to get out of this and I'm going to run like fuck away from him. Because you know what? He's never going to catch me. He's old, he's unfit. That's what she's thinking. But there's no opportunity. Nothing shows itself up as an opportunity until they have travelled for hours and Singleton says he needs to stop and use a bathroom. So they stop, and as he pulls into the parking lot of the place that they've stopped, Mary thinks, this is it. This is my chance. This is my chance to run away from this creepy man. So when he's away, she gets out of the truck. Now as she gets out, she notices that the laces in her trainers have become loose. And she thinks, well, if I'm going to run, and I need to run, I'm going to have to tie these. So in a hurry, she bends down to tie her shoelaces, and it's when she's bent down to tie her lace that she feels the most incredible pain across her head. Singleton smashes her head with a sledgehammer, and she lies on the ground next to the truck, completely incapable of fighting him now with a massive head injury. He ties her up. He pulls her body back inside the truck and he rapes her. This ordeal lasts from the evening through to the following morning. He continues to rape her repeatedly, and she is begging and pleading for him to stop and let her go. But he doesn't. Mary has a moment where she thinks, maybe I can appeal to his human side. The bit, and I get where she's coming from here. The bit where, even though he is a monster, the bit where maybe there's just something human inside of him that she can appeal to. Just that something that she can appeal to. So she tries to start to talk to him. Mary's asking, please, just let me go. Please, just set me free. I'll never tell anyone about this. I'll never say a word. But please, just let me go. And she's thinking maybe there's going to be a tiny grain of something inside of him that's going to just go, okay, you're a human, I'm a human, I'm going to let you go in this moment. But very quickly, Mary will learn that this guy has no grain of humanity. None whatsoever. And what he does next will prove that. He says to her, you want to be set free? Fine. I'll set you free properly. He leaves her tied up and unable to move. And she hears him going to the back of the van, and he's looking for something. Now, do you remember what I said was in the back of the van? A toolbox. From the toolbox, he takes out a hatchet. He brings the hatchet round to where she is, and he sees that Mary is terrified. And he laughs. He actually fucking laughs. Her hands are tied together. Her feet are tied. She can do nothing at this point. She realises right now this man is capable of anything. So he drags her out of the truck into the daylight. So they are miles away from anyone, and Mary is begging him. She's saying, let me go. Just let me go. At which point, he raises the hatchet and he strikes her in the left arm just above her elbow. The hatchet cuts into her arm, and now the lower part of her left arm is hanging off. He takes the hatchet and he attacks the same part of her right arm. This time, with that one blow, he severs the arm entirely. He severs it just above the elbow, and now she's left with a stump on her right arm. He goes back to the left to do the exact same, to finish the job. Mary has now no arms below the elbow. And now from the pain and the attack, Mary is staggering around and she falls to the ground. Now you would think, and you would hope, this would be the end of this ordeal for Mary. But no, because this guy is a sick and fucking twisted individual. You would think this is the point where he was going to go away from that situation, but no, this prick, this fucking dickhead is not finished. You would think maybe he would realise the horrificness of what he's done, but no, he doesn't. Mary is staggering and she's staggering and she falls down on the ground. The massive head injury, the fact that both of her arms from the elbow down have been cut off and she's bleeding everywhere, basically means that she is just now lying in a heap on the ground. And Singleton believes that Mary is dead. So what does he do? He drags her to the edge of a nearby cliff, which leads down to some rocky verges and some little inlets and some little bits that jut out. It's not a cliff that leads down to, water, if you know what I mean. It's not one of those, if you go over the cliff, you end up just in the water. It's one of those, if you push over the cliff, you're going to hit all these verge rocks, you're going to hit all these things. So at the edge, believing she is dead, that he's killed her, he rips off all of her remaining clothing, so she is entirely naked, bleeding everywhere. He throws her body over the cliff. She falls 9 feet before being caught in some rocks. Singleton climbs down. He gets to her body and he pushes it into a little covered area. He pushes her body, he crams her body right into an area that's covered with some bushes. He climbs back up. He collects the bits of her arms that he has chopped off. He collects the clothing that he's ripped from her, and he jumps back into his truck and he drives off. When he's driving away, he throws the limbs into a nearby river. Fucking hell. Fucking what? So he's gone. He's away. So Mary has survived the past 24 hours with this monster. But does this 15-year-old have what it takes to survive anymore? Yes, she does. When she's convinced that he's gone, she undertakes what must have been the most exhausting of physical tasks. She starts to climb up the cliff in an attempt to reach safety. She digs, right, this is terrible, it's so horrific. She digs what remains of each arm. Now she's got nothing below the elbow, right? So she's like the forearm, the hands gone. She's basically got 2 stumps from her shoulder down to where your elbow is. That's all she's got. What she does is she digs them into the mud so that that might potentially stop the bleeding. An inch by fucking inch she climbs up the cliff. I mean, can you even imagine? Can you even imagine having to go through that? Eventually, after hours of climbing, she gets back to the place where the attack took place and she staggers towards the main road. Now she only knows that it is the main road because she can hear traffic. She can hear that there's cars passing and she thinks that's where I need to be. With what's left of her arms, she holds them above her head so that the muscles don't fall out, because he has severed them so badly that she's thinking the muscles are just going to fall out of my arms. And so she gets to the main road and she stands there and she's waiting, and there's a couple who are driving a car. They pass her by. She tries her best to indicate to stop, and they don't. So she waits and she waits and she waits. And this time another couple come along, driving in the car, They see Mary at the side of the road and they stop. They get out the car. Mary, incoherently, in the best way that she can, tries to explain what has happened. And so the couple take her into their car and immediately to the nearest hospital. So they get her to the hospital and they try to explain what she's told them. Mary receives medical attention immediately. Now, in the late 1970s, the medical world, well, it hadn't quite advanced yet into the prosthetic limbs world. And so conversation begins around, well, what are they going to do about Mary's arms? I mean, obviously, first of all, what they do is they treat this severe blow to the head and the severe trauma that her body has received from the rape. So now police arrive at the hospital, and from her bed they interview Mary, and again, I just love Mary. I think she's brilliant. She shows such incredible strength. She describes Singleton in great detail. Every bit of him. She remembers every single detail. She remembers everything he ever told her about his life when they were driving. And she describes the truck perfectly. She's also able to give the most accurate description of what he looks like. So there's a lot to go on here, and police start looking. It only takes 10 days, and eventually police find the exact truck Mary had described sitting in the driveway of a house not far from the hospital that Mary was in. And they arrest Singleton. So when he's questioned by detectives, he absolutely denies knowing anything about it. He says, "Nope, I know nothing. I have no idea what you are talking about." Police, they look around his house and they find traces of Mary's clothing in his fireplace. So when he's challenged on this, he changes his story. I mean, come on. That's the biggest no-no in the world. The minute... What a fucking idiot. The minute you start changing your story is the minute you're fucked. That's just ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? To be like, I know nothing about it. Well, actually, I now know something about it. Yeah. You might as well just confess at that point. You may as well just confess. Because you're making a fucking idiot of yourself. You're just... Oh. I mean, this man is evil, but an idiot at the same time. So what does he say happened, right? He tries to spin a story here. He says, oh, actually, I've gone from not knowing who Mary was at all to actually remembering that, yeah, I did pick up a hitchhiker, and yes, she was 15. But he then says, well, I also picked up 2 Mexican guys. And these 2 Mexican guys, well, they were really into Mary. He then tries to tell this elaborate story where Mary tells everyone in the truck that she is a prostitute. And he then mixes this with the story that, but she picked up a sharp stick and she pointed it in my face and she said, if you try anything, I will stab your eyes. I mean, come on. Talk about tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. bullshit, right? Absolute bullshit. He then says that the two Mexicans raped her and that he played no part whatsoever in any of it. What fucks me off the most here, what really gets to me, is that I think Singleton thought he was so clever. Because he thought that by chopping off the lower half of Mary's arms, there would be no fingerprints. There would be nothing that could be found. But what he didn't count on was that one of Mary's limbs was going to be discovered by a fisherman who went to the police. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine you are out for a day's fishing and you think you've caught a big, I don't know, salmon, but instead it's the bottom half of someone's arm, and this goes straight to police and straight to forensics, who go immediately, this is the bottom half of Mary's arm. So Mary's in hospital and she's recovering well, and she's fitted with metal prosthetics. Do you know the kind of ones I mean, that are like, you know, they almost just came out like it's like a straight piece of metal and they have a hook on the end? That's what she's fitted with. Lawrence Singleton is arrested for attempted murder and rape, and he awaits trial. Mary goes back to her family home and she awaits the trial. Now, if you were 15 and you had just been through this, surely you would just want this over. But Mary is ready for the trial. She wants to stand in court and make sure that this monster is convicted. And that's exactly what she does. As his trial starts, Mary arrives in court every day. She is there in the courtroom. And when they call her to testify, she tells the court exactly what he did to her in detail. And I love this. I love this. She's 15. She eyeballs him across the room in the court. She raises her prosthetic arms and she says, "You did this to me." She's fearless in court. What does Lawrence Singleton do in court? Well, he sticks to his story. It was two Mexicans. It wasn't me. So the jury rests. The jury take their time to weigh everything up, but they return with a guilty verdict. And this is what is so frustrating. It drove me insane, and so many others, as you're about to discover. The maximum sentence for attempted murder in California in 1978 was 14 years. And that is what he receives. 14 years. Come on. The judge in the case openly addresses Singleton in the courtroom and he says this: "If I could give you a life sentence right now, I would." As Mary leaves the court, she has to walk past Lawrence Singleton, and in a low voice he says to her, "If it's the last thing I do, I will finish the job. Mary is terrified. When he says this, she's absolutely terrified. And she reports it to the court, but there's nothing that can be done. He's already been convicted. Just imagine being 15 years old and you're leaving the court with those words ringing in your ear. If it's the last thing I do, I will finish the job. What does it mean for Mary? Mary, who up until this point has been so strong. She fucking survived that brutality that he put her through. But now that he's behind bars, these words, they have a big impression on her. She's now scared. She's scared that he's only in prison for 14 years. And what if he comes back? What if he comes back to get her? Mary spends the next few years in hiding, terrified that somehow, as he said, the job would be finished. She went through periods of depression, anxiety, and the real toll of what happened in that 24 hours, it really hit her. Now it's the next part of this story which, I mean, if the first part wasn't rage-inducing enough, and it is, this is what will actually send people into a proper rage. Of his 14-year sentence, Lawrence Singleton serves only 8 of those years. He was freed after 8 years for good behaviour. Now come on! Don't be mental. Don't be mental. The fucking prison system. I don't care if someone like Singleton goes into prison and turns into Mary fucking Poppins. I don't care. They should not be freed. They should not be freed. Come on. Am I the only person in the world, right? Am I the only person in the world that doesn't get the good behaviour thing with prisons? I don't get it. Well, I do, and I don't, right? I do, and I don't. Right, well, let's look at it. Right, say you were in prison because you were, I don't know, right? I'm just plucking this out of the air. Let's say you were in prison because you were there for a charge of public nudity, right? Well, what that means is basically you've gone to prison because you've got your arse out in public, or you've got your bits out, you've had a bit of sex, it was in public, and you've went to prison. But when you've went to prison, you've behaved really well when you're in prison. You've done all the things. Oh, you've done everything. Well, I don't know what all the things you do, but you do all the things that you need to do, and that's fine. You didn't get your bits out. That was fine. Now I can see that, right? I can see that. I can understand that. That's fine. But how can you possibly, how can anybody equate that with a man who is capable of that attack on Mary having good behaviour? What? Your behaviour is you didn't fucking kidnap somebody, rape them and cut half their fucking arms off. Well, when you're in a prison, what alternative do you have other than good behaviour? You know what I mean? Yeah, you can be a dick and you can start fights in prison, but ultimately, you're not going to have that same opportunity. I just don't get it. I just don't understand it. This is obviously an episode I need to work out for the future. I think I need to have a meeting with myself called Good Behaviour in Prison. I'm going to have that meeting and I will report back. So, I'm not the only person who felt the rage at the fact that he was going to be let out of prison 8 years after the attack on Mary, there were hundreds upon hundreds of people protesting in the streets outside of the prison to keep him in. Politicians and weighty figures, like proper weighty figures in the USA, were making statements saying, do not let this monster out. It's a mistake to let him out. But it all fell on deaf ears. Lawrence Singleton was released. I mean, this next bit is just insane. Police had to hide him in various parts of California. They would hide him in things like tents and caravans because literally people were baying for his blood. Californians were actually saying to police, if he sets foot in our town, we will lynch him. We will kill this man. So police had no option. They had to just keep moving him around all the time, trying to hide him place to place, because people were so like, we will find this man and fucking kill him because of what he did to Mary. So he settles in some sort of quiet village somewhere. He changes his name. But it doesn't take too long, and then what happens is a neighbour works out who he is. He suddenly sort of one day gets struck by the, oh God, you're my neighbour who's moved in and I've got to know you. I've suddenly realised who you are. You're the guy who chopped that girl's arms off and threw her over a fucking cliff. So he has to leave. He's run out of town. So he goes to Florida. Now, police don't lose sight of him. They keep a track on where he is. So he's in Florida. So meanwhile, what about Mary? Well, Mary is living still in California, but she's living in complete fear. She's convinced that at any moment he might come back. Oh God, she's lost that spark of bravery. She's lost the fight that she had because she knows that now he is out of prison. But he won't be out of prison for long. While he is living in Florida, he is at home one evening when a neighbour of Singleton hears screaming coming through the walls. The neighbour is very alarmed and calls police. When police arrive, they find a terrible scene inside of Singleton's house. Now, I have to read you what was in the police report because it's just mental. Police officers arrive at Singleton's house, his new home in Florida, and the police report says this. We knocked on the door and Mr. Singleton answered. His body was covered in blood splatter. He was sweating. He appeared to be staggering like he was drunk. And he had a condom hanging from his flaccid member. When we asked if everything was okay and could we come in to look around, he said, I've been chopping some vegetables. That is why I'm in this state. Now, I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing at the situation that they're about to find. I'm just cannot believe that anyone would ever think that you can get away with saying, I've been chopping some vegetables, when you're standing there covered in blood, with a condom hanging off your willy. I just don't understand that. Oh. Police enter the living room and they find the dead body of Roxy Hayes, a well-known sex worker in the area. Roxy was 32, she had 3 young children, and she had a severe cocaine addiction. And she'd come over to Singleton's house that night because he offered to pay for sex. Things turned violent and he stabbed her to death. Now, of course, the people who protested his release were able to say, "We fucking told you. This is what happens if you let a man like this, who is capable of what he did to Mary, this is what happens if you fucking let him go after 8 years. Ugh. Singleton, he was tried and he was found guilty of the murder and sentenced to death. Good. Fucking good. Interestingly, in the case of Roxy Hayes, the woman stabbed to death in his house, in that trial they were never allowed to talk about what happened to Mary. That was to never be mentioned. Again, this is another part of the law that I don't understand. I don't get that. I just don't understand it. Do you know what I think it is? I think it's the law going, we don't want to know that we fucked up here. We really fucked up by letting him out. It's neither here nor there, because actually he is found guilty. So I just think it's a shame that Mary's story was never brought into that as well as more fucking evidence for it. But anyway, so he's sentenced to death. 3 months into his prison sentence, Lawrence Singleton dies of cancer. He never receives the electric chair as was planned. So what of Mary? Mary the survivor, Mary the girl who wasn't afraid to face him, but spent years terrified that he might return. Well, the road to where Mary is now has not been easy at all. Mary got into various relationships, but she struggled with men. She struggled to trust any man. She hid herself away, and I hate this. She hid herself away, and at one point she just stopped eating, and she weighed 96 pounds. She was tiny. But everybody in Mary's life, they gathered around her. They did everything that they could to try and help her rebuild her life. And eventually she did meet a man who she had feelings for. And this man had feelings for her as well. It was actually during the point where she was trying to get some sort of compensation for her attack. And the man she met was called Mr. Wilson. Now, the reason I can't give you his full name is because I don't know his full name. I don't actually think he's even called Mr. Wilson. But the reason that he is just called that in the press is because Mary is so protective of her now life. She has, anyone who ever wants to talk to her has to go through a series of legal documents saying that they won't disclose where she lives, and they will not disclose her husband's name or her children's name or any of that. She's so entirely private and fiercely terrified. Even though he's dead, she's built this thing where she now has to be so private about everything. She doesn't want to be known as the Mary who suffered this absolutely terrible, terrible thing. She just wants to live her life away from it and never have press knocking at her door and asking her questions. What we do know is that she has 2 children. She's got 2 boys. And in one interview, very, very guarded interview that she gave, she said even at 50 years old she is now, she's still scared by loud noises, by unexpected things happening and coming at her. But bit by bit, she's getting stronger. When asked about the death of Lawrence Singleton, she says, "I never felt the relief I expected to feel, but my sons and my husband did. Knowing he could never harm my family was the best that I could ever feel." So today Mary works as an artist. She's learned to use charcoal and she does drawings and paintings which sell really well. She still has the same prosthetics that she was given in 1978, so she still has the hooks. And although that technology and that has moved on and Mary could probably have those 2 things, actually for her, she learned to work with those as soon as she had to work with them, and so now that's just become her life, and so that's what she works with. Her husband encouraged her to start a campaign where she went into schools and she went into communities and she could talk to people about her experience and her survival. And she agreed. Although she doesn't like any kind of limelight, she doesn't want any kind of press, she doesn't want any of that. She actually thought, you know what, maybe in a way, me going and talking to these different communities in different schools might be an amazing thing for me to do as part of the recovery. So she goes to a school, and it's during one of these talks in a school where she's telling her story, and a 15-year-old boy shouts at her halfway through her story, "You got what you deserved." What a little dickhead. If I'd been there, I would have kicked him in the balls right there. But Mary says, "I heard that and I thought, he's 15. He's 15. She says, "I was 15 when this happened to me. And I remember that at that age, you just don't think. You think you can say what you want, you can do what you want, and you can conquer the world. I learned I couldn't, but that's made me who I am today." And so ends the story of Mary. Okay, right, well, I hope you enjoyed that. That's the second story in the Survivor series. Mary's story is a particularly brutal one. I found this story really, really hard. I found it really, I think it's because it's just so graphic. There's just so much about it that I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. I don't know, I just really found it hard. Had to keep stopping, researching the story and taking myself away from it, coming back to it, going back to it and going, oh fuck, do I want to tell this story? Don't know, whatever. Anyway, that's it. It's done now. I've told the story. So, if you want to get in touch, please do. Where can you do it? Let me think. You could send a pigeon. You could hire a plane and write something in the sky. No, I'll tell you what, there's a way faster way to do it, and that's Facebook, and that's Twitter, and that's Instagram, and that's email. Just get in touch with me. Say hi, say hello. It'd be lovely to hear from you. Come join the community. Come join the people who enjoy the podcast and who want to chat and who want to laugh and joke. And you know, the weird thing is always, right, I think it's really funny because if obviously this is a podcast that tells at times very, very, as you've just heard, dark stories. But what I always think's hilarious is that actually you get these really dark stories, but actually the social media around it is just, it's a lot of fun. It's just a lot of people having a lot of fun. So please, come join. If you want to help me develop the podcast, if you want to support me in any way, you can through Patreon. Just go onto Patreon and look for Extraordinary Stories Podcast. Okay? That would be amazing of you. Another way to support me would be to do an iTunes review. 5 stars only. Don't leave anything less than 5 stars. If you do, I'll hunt you down and kill you. But you can leave an iTunes review. That really helps as well because it just increases visibility. It helps me do more, etc. But yeah, okay. Until I'm going to stop babbling on. Until the next Survivor Series episode. Okay. Goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.